Welcome, everybody, to Spotlight 814, Erie's local theater podcast. I am your host, Ryan Dolly, and today's guest is Teri Adams. She is currently playing Iowa Housewife in Menopause the Musical 2, coming to the Warner Theater here in Erie on Tuesday, May 13th, with Broadway in Erie. Good morning, Teri, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, so first question. What is Menopause the Musical 2?
Well, this is our long-awaited sequel to Menopause the Musical. Just Menopause the Musical was the original title, and that show, I believe, debuted in 2001. And I just did 3 months of the first one about a year ago in Reno. So it's still, people are still booking that show here 20 some years later. It's really remarkable. And so we thought, let's do a sequel. So this new one we're just about 2 years old now. So it's still very new. So we're booking a lot of the same theaters around the country and, some internationally where we have played the first one. But this one, basically, it's the same 4 characters that the people who have seen the first one, some people have seen it many times. Same 4 characters that you know and love. And it takes place 5 years later on a cruise ship. They've reunited to have a girls' trip and, hijinks on the high seas, I guess, ensue. So it's the same fun 90-minute formula, singing and dancing, doing parody lyrics of tunes that you'll recognize. This time we've updated the music because now, people of a different generation are going through menopause. There's always going to be somebody, right? So now it's hits from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Okay.
For example, I can't think of who sang the song, I Need a Hero.
Oh,
somebody else. Was it Laura Branigan or somebody like that?
I can't remember.
I can't either.
That's going to drive me nuts.
I know, right? And now it's I Need a Vino. Are the lyrics. So that's an example. And so it's just a lot of fun. Same kind of same characters, same fun and frivolity. The audience kind of becomes a fifth girlfriend.
Okay.
And even men enjoy it. So ladies, bring your reluctant husbands, and we'll have them tapping their toes by the end of it, I promise.
There you go. Tell us a little bit about Iowa Housewife.
Iowa Housewife is great. I would argue that she has probably the greatest arc of her character.
Okay.
Kind of she did in 1 too, but now she's 5 years on, and not really a huge spoiler, but I will say that her beloved Ronnie, her husband from the first one, has now passed on.
Okay.
And so she is on kind of a new journey of self-discovery after being somebody's wife for almost 30 years. And she's having a little bit of a time letting go of that. And I won't spoil anything else, but it becomes pretty hilarious how she chooses to deal with that. And so this one really centers more, I think, this from people who have seen both shows that I'm close to. I've said, so what do you think of the second one? Which do you like better? And, people have their own opinions, but a lot of people have said the second one seems to have a little bit more heart. And I think you get to know each character a little bit more in this one. So there's a little bit more depth to it. And it's kind of exciting to see where the characters are lifted to. And this one really celebrates friendship and bonding with women who are going through the same thing. And so that's what I really like about it.
Okay. That's great. I used to work on a cruise ship.
Oh, really? I've never been on a cruise ever.
No? Yeah. I don't recommend it.
Is that right?
Yeah. I had a rough experience. So.
Was it seasickness and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, I was out during like the worst hurricane season.
Oh, ever. No.
And yeah,
That
it's
does not sound fun.
yeah, just falling all over the stage. It was
Oh,
rough.
heavens. Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet.
Uh, okay, so who is Teri Adams?
Oh, God. How long do you have? I am from Kansas, the Kansas City metropolitan area. Um, and so I'm pretty close to Iowa Housewife,
Okay.
similar.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I have a long history in theater. I studied it in high school, studied it in college, and have been very blessed to have a long um, equity career. I think I just celebrated my 30th year in the Actors Equity Union.
Yeah.
So I can't believe sometimes it feels like it's flown by. So
Yeah. That's a
yeah,
long time. Yeah, that's great.
yeah.
So what was your like very first role? And like what made you fall in love with performing?
Oh gosh. You know, the thing that I have a vague memory of being in the sixth grade, and we were doing one of those, condensed junior high kid versions of Bye Bye Birdie.
Okay.
And I had the opening line, and it was simply I had a little telephone, and here was my line: "Hi, Margie." That was it. And just the electricity that I felt from opening the show and knowing that, I could, and then of course after that, but that's kind of when I got the bug. And then realizing that I could make people laugh
Yeah.
was like a drug kind of. Just
Right.
I really like that. And I think it's interesting. You asked about some of my background. I grew up, people always ask me if my father was in the military, and he wasn't, but I moved something like 18 times before I ever started high school. We just moved around a lot, and I think that because of that, I think I probably tried to be the funny kid, or maybe to make friends.
Yeah, to
So I've
fit
kind
in
of,
when you get there
yeah,
to a new
i
school. Yeah.
i think so. And I kind of realized that a few years ago. Hey, maybe that is a little bit where this performing thing comes into play, just
Yeah.
having to move around a lot and fit in and make friends and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I guess it served me well.
Yeah. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how are audiences reacting across the country to the show? Like, are any cities that are like extra rowdy,
Oh gosh.
surprisingly quiet? Like,
It's more noticeable when we have a quieter crowd, and it really doesn't happen very often. And it's really follows suit with the first show at the end of Menopause 1 that ran for so long. We had a thing at the end of the show. This is pre-COVID, of course,
right.
where we brought the women up on stage with us for a kick line. And
Okay.
so that was a kind of a special moment. We would have ladies come up and share with us, I haven't laughed so hard and since my husband died last year, or I'm going through chemotherapy and I really needed this night out with my girlfriends.
Yeah.
And so that element, we miss since COVID, but we get a little bit of that back in this second one, because we have some moments where we kind of break the fourth wall and talk to the audience. And so that gives us kind of that connection. But I would say that it's the audiences are pretty vocal. And I think the music and even the pre-show, we sell hot flash fans before
Okay.
the show for a small donation, raising money for women's charities.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're really proud of as well. So we'd like to get the crowd pumped up before we ever start. So it's a pretty rowdy, fun atmosphere
That's
each
good.
night. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, so if a Gen Zer walked into Menopause the Musical 2 with no context,
Right.
what would you want them to take away from it?
Well, if you're a female, I would say just you can sort of look forward to what's coming. You can watch it without being too horrified. We're not a medical journal. We're not trying to give you any cold, hard facts, but, we commiserate sort of with gentle humor, sort of raise the curtain or pull the curtain back on some of these symptoms, weight gain, getting moody, wrinkles, things that all women deal with. And it just is a funner way to address that. And so I would say to a Gen Z, or sit back and relax and
Enjoy.
and enjoy.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Now our podcast is primarily centered around a lot of community theater,
Great.
and stuff like that. What advice would you have for somebody who's starting off in the community theater and maybe wants to go on tour or go on Broadway?
Gosh, I have not been on Broadway myself. I've worked in New York in a couple theaters there, but worked regionally. I would say first and foremost, and I say this as a Midwesterner, never be ashamed of where you're from. Talent is not predicated by your zip code.
Right.
You might find as you go up the ladder in your theatrical career, when you're working with maybe more experienced actors that have been around, it's easy to get intimidated, but don't let that stop you. Always be true to yourself. There's a reason why you were cast in the show that you're in. So really hold on to that, dig in, really lean into who you are. Because that's what any casting director is looking for, is what can you do to stand out, to make yourself different. And it took me a while to realize that. I used to get kind of touchy about, maybe being from Kansas City. Oh, she's a hayseed, or what? You've never been on Broadway? But, you don't have to. I never really had much. It's not that I wouldn't go if I had that opportunity, but I never really had a strong pull to move to New York City. Right. I have great admiration, and I work with tons of people who have gone that route, but you don't have to do that to be a successful working artist. And I think that's really, really important. There's great work, great theater happening around the world in the middle of the country as well as both coasts. So I think I would say that. I
think that's great advice. I went the same route you did. I was in New York for a little bit. I ended up moving to South Korea to do children's musicals.
Oh, wonderful.
And there is work everywhere.
And you have to, I find that some younger people today, and maybe this is just sort of me being old and crotchety, but I think sometimes there can be kind of a sense of entitlement. And I think you have to kind of look past that, because everybody has to kind of pay your dues. And, I dressed up as I did lots of children's theater and loved it, dressed up as stuffed animals and, painted your face and did all of that. It's a great learning experience. And you can always learn from somebody that you're working with. Absolutely. The director, the musical director, choreographer, get your feet wet in as many areas. I think my studying theater, learning theater history, learning how to help break the set down, learning about makeup, all of those things really, just like anything you're studying, really help you become well-rounded, but stay true to yourself. And
I love that. That. And let's see. I think I got like one or two more questions for you. Sure. If your character could give one piece of advice to a woman going through menopause, what would it be?
My character, what would Iowa Housewife say? I think she would say, don't be afraid. I think Iowa Housewife and I must admit now that nobody's really ever asked me that question, Ryan. So that's a good one. I think I'm realizing at this moment that I probably do have a lot in common with Iowa Housewife. I think we can be our own biggest barrier to not just theater, but any new experience in life, no matter how old you get. And I think this speaks to women more my age. If you do lose your husband, or you are facing a medical diagnosis, don't be afraid to reach out to others, reach out to your girlfriends, Don't be afraid to try something new, even if it's scary. I think the biggest rewards in our lives as older women and our careers is taking a chance, doing something that scares you is often super rewarding.
Yeah.
So I think that's what advice I would give, Iowa Housewife would give, would be don't be afraid. Even if you are afraid, try to challenge yourself to do one thing maybe a day that scares you, even if it's opening a conversation with somebody you might be afraid to talk to, or shy to talk to. Just do something that takes you outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And last one, just give us one last pitch to our audience to fill the Warner Theater for you guys for Menopause the Musical 2.
Please come see us. I believe that's Tuesday night, right? Next Tuesday at the Warner Theater. I'm sure Ryan has details on where you can get those tickets.
Yep.
My pitch would be, it's 90 minutes, no intermission. It's a great time. Singing and dancing. Come with your girlfriends, bring your daughter, bring your mother, bring your husband. I promise he'll have a good time. You'll recognize the songs. There's lots of fun merch there that's available. And it's just, if you want a fun night out where you're not thinking too much and you can get together with some girlfriends for dinner or drinks before or after, it's worth it. You'll maybe reconnect with an old girlfriend you haven't seen for a while. So come and see us. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Teri.
Sure.
And, we look forward to having you on our stages here.
We can't wait to see you guys.
All right.
Okay.
Well, have a great day. And thank you so much again.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.